so much, Dr. Martin, for the introduction. And I actually was a student of Dr. Martin in this Boots to Books class. I was in Dr. Martin's class. And yes, his classes are just as entertaining as his speech. So, where to begin? I'm kind of different. Oh, it's needs to be closer? Okay, can you hear me? Sorry. I really don't have any prompt to read any kind of speech or anything like that. I'm pretty much just going to speak from the heart. That's how I'm going to do this. Pretty much, I'll keep it kind of short. Pretty much, you know, I grew up in the 90s, and that was a time during, it was kind of the peaceful decade, and I grew up watching movies, like some of the other speakers said. I grew up watching Full Metal Jacket, grew up watching Heartbreak Ridge, Black Hawk Down. I always had this pride of, again, I thought I was going to join the military too. I remember I used to put on my grandfather's dress blue uniform. He was a Marine in World War II in the island of Japan. He got a Purple Heart on that island, and he died before I was born. I never met him, but my parents used to talk about him quite often, and I always had this passion of joining the military. I always knew I would, I was a junior in high school when 9/11 happened, and I really can't. You know, I was just like the typical high school students. You know, I grew up in Houston, that's where I grew up, and I really didn't think much of it at the time. You know, we sat down and talked about it. You know, I was only 17 years old. The only thing I really cared about was, you know, what was going on this weekend, or the only thing I remember really happening that day, we still had football practice, and all the other high schools canceled football practice, but we still had it. But I remember the thing that really got me into it, our coach gave this really passionate speech about why we were having football practice that day. And it was really because of that speech, and because we still had football practice, and we were going to still keep going and living our lives and not let these terrorists defer us from doing this, is kind of what made me get that passion. And slowly later, I did join the Marines in 2003, and I kind of joined because I was like one of these gung-ho, young 18-year-old kids that wanted to go do something great and wonderful and fight for our country. And I joined the Marines because I really, you know, they had the best looking uniform. I think that's pretty cool why I joined them. So, and I wanted to be the best, and I heard they're the few, the proud, the Marines, so that's why I joined it. And pretty much my story just kind of pretty much revolves around my injury. You know, when I got to boot camp in 2003, it was nothing like I thought. I really hated it. And when I got to my infantry training, I also hated that. But it was really when I got into my unit, and then when I especially got to deploy to Iraq, is when I started really becoming proud that I was a Marine and really trying to excel, to be a better Marine and a better person. And I spent 6 months in Iraq, and I was over there during March to August 2004, and that was like pretty much the time when the Fallujah battle started kicking off, and when I got to Iraq, we thought the war was over. That was in February of '04, but it really wasn't. That's when the Fallujah battle started happening, and I was with the 1st Marine Division, 2-1. My MOS was, I was a 0341. I was a mortarman with a weapons company, and pretty much I was there for 6 months, and almost up to 6 months, I didn't really lose a lot of friends too close to me. I knew people that would get killed. I knew people that got injured, but like at the same time, I don't remember having. You know, I was scared, but at the same time, I wanted to be out there with my buddies. I wanted to go through what they were going through, feel what they were feeling at that same time, you know, when anything went down. And I always volunteered for everything. I remember that. And actually, the day of August 21st, 2004, I remember it was a Saturday, and I woke up, and we went on a patrol just like any other early morning patrol, and we got to this one spot outside Fallujah, a little town called Sakawiyah, and an Iraqi police officer came up to our platoon and came up to our squad and said he saw a wire sticking on the ground, and pretty much we knew it was probably a suspected IED. He asked for 2 volunteers, and of course I was the first one to come up. Me and my friend Lance Corporal Seth Houston, we volunteered to go up to go check out what these wires were. You know, we didn't want to send a vehicle down there. We sent usually two Marines down there, and usually with the squad leader. And we were the first ones down the road. It was just us 3. It was me, Lance Corporal Houston, and my squad leader, Corporal LaPree. I remember him. And he was the first one. And then my buddy was the second, then I was the third. And when we got down there, of course it went off. It was a .155 artillery round, and it killed my best friend, and then it pretty much severely injured me, and I lost the use of my right arm, lost my shoulder, lost use of my hand, and I'm blind in my right eye. And from that injury, I spent the next 2.5 years at Bethesda Naval Hospital getting 25 surgeries, and I had a lot of anger because of what happened that day, and I did a lot of bad things to cope with it. It was a long medevac process. It's just like Doc Martin was saying, when I got back home, it was almost like I was kind of treated like a celebrity. I was one of the first ones back injured back to Houston, and people used to come up to me and ask me what happened, and I would try to tell you these things or tell you what happened that day, and nothing would come out of my mouth. It was like, how can I possibly tell you what happened or what led up to that event? And it was the weirdest thing. I thought there was something wrong with me. I really did. And I tell you, after the next couple years were pretty much dark. I mean, I was almost blind for about a year straight. I couldn't see anything. I was pretty much bedridden for a year. Everybody had to take kind of care of me. I mean, I look pretty good. I mean, I'm kind of doing all well today, but it was a long time and a lot of therapy. You know, they should have amputated my arm for months, but they did it. And, naturally, like any person who doesn't cope well with things, I started abusing my painkillers the hospital gave me and started drinking too much, and that's what I coped with. And I pretty much lived in this angered and bitter state for years. I did do my time, and I got out in 2007, but I was angry because at the same time I got injured, I wanted to go back over with my friends, and all my other friends did 2 more tours, and I wanted to go do that, but I couldn't. I didn't feel like a man. I didn't feel like a Marine anymore. I was just an injured Marine walking around, you know, with all the other injured Marines in the hospital. And that kind of upset me because I didn't expect my Marine combat tour to be like that, but that's what it was. And pretty much the next couple of years were just, I lived in that darkness, didn't drinking, and, you know, finally, luckily enough, I had an organization that helped me, and that was the Wounded Warrior Regiment. And at the same time, maybe I didn't have the whole nightmares with PTSD, but I had the whole much of that depression and that anger and that bitterness people come back with. And to an extent, I did have a little PTSD, but luckily enough, I came out here to beautiful California from Texas, and I'm grateful because of that. And I'm real grateful that I've come to meet Doc Martin and be in his class with all the other Marines and soldiers and sailors that I have met there. And I think that's one of the biggest things I really missed, because when I got out, I was pretty much just taken from my unit. You know, it was just weird. I was on a patrol one day, and the next thing I knew, lights out, and I kept waking up in and out on C-130, waking up in Landstuhl, Germany, waking up at Bethesda. And this whole time I'm blind, I can't see anything. I'm just wondering, you know, what happened? Did everybody get killed? I mean, it's a weird process getting medevaced out, and it's still weird to this day to think about it. You know, it just almost seems like a dream, but of course it wasn't. And I'm grateful that I've got the help that I needed. And coming out to Pasadena City College, it was a wonderful college because they put you like together with all the other like Marines and soldiers, and you take your classes together, and you got that camaraderie back, because that's kind of what I missed, you know. And I know that's probably not what you're thinking about this. I'm going to have this speech like this, but that's pretty much my story in a real small, condensed way. But I just want to thank all you coming out for Veterans Day, and thank you.